All right, so take a look at these two speakers. Which of the two do you think is more confident? Now, it doesn't take a genius to know that this person looks and probably also feels a lot more confident than the other one. But how exactly did they get there? What exactly makes this person more confident while this person seems more insecure? Well, being a confident English speaker, or speaker of any language for that matter, involves so much more than just the words that come out of your mouth. In fact, the majority of your perceived confidence actually comes from your non-verbals. Now, non-verbal communication really has to do with things like eye contact, facial expressions, gestures that you make with your hands and other parts of your body, and of course your posture, how you hold yourself. So today, I'm going to give you 6 practical tips and exercises that will help you to instantly increase your confidence without speaking a single word.
All right, so it goes without saying that if you do not feel very confident speaking your native language, then you're probably not going to feel very confident when it comes to speaking English either, right? So all of the tips that I'm going to give you today will help you to speak English more confidently, yes, but more importantly, they're going to help you feel more confident as a person, no matter what language you're speaking. In fact, like just through my own personal experience of learning languages, in my 20s, when I was more dedicated to it, I used to go to language exchanges, and I've always been shy throughout my life. So this was, at first a very terrifying experience. But I found that when I started doing it more and more, I could actually feel a lot more confident. And then when I actually went into situations where I was speaking English, my native tongue, then I also felt more confident. So let's look at some body language changes that, if you make them, will make other people perceive you as being more confident and will make you feel more confident yourself.
So just try to distribute your weight evenly between both feet, which means avoid, when you can, putting too much of your weight to one side or maybe tucking one leg behind the other. You can kind of imagine as if the earth were like pulling you down. You really want to have your feet grounded. So practice standing tall. Stand up straight, straighten your back, hold your head up high. So really make yourself as tall as you can without seeming like you're going onto your tippy toes. Let your shoulders relax. A lot of times when we try to stand up tall, our shoulders will naturally sort of go up and be tense with our neck. So make sure to have them lowered. You can do this by actually rolling them backwards and forwards so they're relaxed, as long as you're not surrounded by people in that moment. That's something good to practice at home. Breathing is also really important for being grounded. So actually practice your breathing. And if you're in a situation maybe where you're feeling stressed, you can use this really to make yourself more present. So breathe deeply from the diaphragm, so like your stomach should sort of open up a little bit. Your ribs should also expand out. You don't want to have your breathing be too shallow, so it shouldn't be from high up in your chest. Another negative thing that this does, if you're not breathing deep enough, is your voice tends to sound more nasally. Eye contact is also really important. You don't want to stare someone down to the point that, it's awkward or you seem creepy. But you should really avoid looking down at the ground, looking at your feet, looking off in the distance like you're distracted. One way you can practice this is actually when you're walking on the street and you meet someone's eyes, try not to be the first person that breaks eye contact. Wait for them to break it first. This can feel like really awkward at first, but if you practice it, you get better and better at it. And then when you're actually in a situation where you're talking to someone, you won't feel as awkward holding their eye contact. If you're sitting, usually it's best to actually relax a bit in your chair. So lean back, don't like slouch down into your chair, but actually use the back of it. Spread yourself out, avoid crossing your legs. If you do cross your legs, do it in a more open way. And if you're like sitting on a sofa, for example, you can actually lean back on it and drape your arm across it, like even maybe behind the person that you're talking to, as long as it's a close enough relationship as you're looking at them and talking to them. Number 2, practice power poses. So social psychologist Amy Cuddy has this really famous TED Talk that later turned into a book all about how our body language affects our mood, our emotions, and ultimately how confident we feel. So she discusses how having more open body language makes us feel more powerful, more confident, But when we feel more insecure, what we tend to do is close up our body language, maybe crossing our arms, getting really small in our chair. So Amy Cuddy teaches us that if we do power poses, this can actually help us to feel more confident. So this generally is taking some sort of pose that is more open and makes us feel more powerful. This could be having your hands up, your arms up in the air. It could be having your hands on your hips. Now, obviously, not all of these you could do while you're talking to other people because you're not going to be like talking to someone like this. But some of them you could do, for example, before you have a high pressure situation. So maybe if you're going to a social event where you'll be speaking English, or if you're speaking even your native language, but you're nervous about it, or if you are going in for a job interview, for example, then right before the job interview, you could go to the bathroom, close yourself in there, and stand for at least 2 minutes with your hands up in the air, with your feet firmly grounded and wide on the floor. And if you do this, it's actually going to change your brain chemistry, as she explains. In fact, this is so effective that for a little bit of behind the scenes information, we do this in preparation before recording any podcast because it helps us just to feel more present and more confident about whatever we're talking about in that podcast. So how does this actually work? So Amy Cuddy points us to some scientific studies that show that when we feel more stressed, the level of cortisol, which is also known as the stress hormone, increases in our brain. But by doing these power poses that we discussed, or doing anything that makes you feel more confident in general, helps to lower the stress level. So you can imagine, if you're in one of these situations, especially if you are someone like me that's shy or introverted, it can cause a high level of stress. Maybe even you begin to sweat or something like that, a really physical response, right, to that stress. But if you do these power poses beforehand, then it can help you to feel a bit more at ease. Maybe you'll still be a little bit stressed, but less so than if you had not done this. And a really amazing thing about body language is it can help you bring more presence to your speech. So oftentimes it's not just what we're saying, but actually how we're saying it. So for example, if you're speaking to someone and your arms are crossed, that might make them think one thing. But if you are speaking to them and you have your hands on your hips, for example, then that makes you seem like someone who is confident, who is powerful, who knows what they're talking about, who feels comfortable with who they are. So, just pay attention to this, even if you're watching TV or if you're watching people, you're people watching on the street, and see what kind of body language are they having and how does that make your perception of them change. So the exercise here is pretty simple, and you can even try it out right now if you're somewhere where people can't see you. It's actually doing one of these power poses for just a couple minutes and paying attention to how you feel before and after. So check out, these are some of the different power poses that you can do, and either close yourself up somewhere, or even if you're watching this alone right now in your bedroom, in your office, then give it a go and see how it makes you feel. 2 minutes at least. If you are someone who is prone to shyness or anxiety, you should not expect that you can just turn things around by watching a YouTube video like this one and then going to an event that is crowded with strangers, or to a high pressure situation like a job interview. Well, the good news is that there are some ways that you can practice first, even at home alone, in low pressure situations that will help you to master some of the principles of confident body language. And if you're the type of person who really suffers from anxiety, well, you can kind of build your way up by first practicing alone, and then you can maybe do it with people who you feel close to, who don't judge you, like friends and family, before you actually go out into the wild and try this out with strangers. Okay, so if you want to practice this, first you should try speaking in front of the mirror. You can even film yourself and then watch it back and really try to focus in on the details of your body language. Pay special attention to what you do with your facial expressions, with your hands, with your arms and your shoulders, your general posture, and any other body language that might make you seem anxious or nervous. And then when you do this, you can become more mindful about correcting any tics that you might have when you're nervous. And of course, if you're trying to build up your confidence, it is fantastic if you are practicing at home alone, but eventually you're gonna have to get out there and practice with real people, right? And sometimes it can be really difficult to find good situations in which to do this, especially if you're wanting to do it in your target language, like English. So we have a really fantastic way that you can do this for free, anytime, anywhere that you have an internet connection, and that's with the Real Life app. And the really great thing here is that you can connect with people from all around the world who are just like you in the same boat, trying to learn a language and maybe feeling not so comfortable communicating in it yet. All right, so you can give it a try, download it for free right now in your favorite app store, or just click up here or down in the description below. Number 4, practice mindful listening. So depending on who you're talking to, it can feel quite awkward when you're in a conversation with someone and they don't really seem to be listening to you. Maybe they're pretending to be listening, maybe they're double tasking, and so you know that they're not really fully listening. You can be someone who really connects to people by practicing active listening. And basically what this means is that you give your undivided attention to the other person, really truly listening to what they're saying. There is a quote that I really love that paints a picture of this perfectly, that says, "You have 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them proportionally." So this means that we should listen twice as much as we speak. And everyone loves to talk, and they love to talk especially about themselves, about the things that they do great. Give other people the opportunity to speak more and really listen. And use your body language as well to show that you are listening. All right, so how do you actually do this? So one thing that you can do is actually use your body language, as I said. So there are different ways that you can do this. In most Western cultures, English-speaking countries, nodding your head looks like this, right? Do it tactfully, which means, don't do it too much. You don't want to just be like this the whole time because the person's going to think that there's something wrong maybe with your neck. But you can do it, every once in a while to show that you're following, that you're listening, that you understand what they're saying. You can also use some different noises to do this. So in English, it would be things like ah. So all those kind of things show that, you're following what they're saying and even that you're finding it interesting. You don't need to maintain eye contact 100%, but it's especially important that you maintain eye contact when you're making a point. Usually when someone else is talking, I tend to find it helpful to look them in the eye the entire time. When I'm talking though, oftentimes if I'm looking them in the eye, maybe I can't fully get my thoughts together. And so, I might for a moment break that eye contact look and kind of think about putting my thoughts together. But, when you're listening, a great way to show that you're listening is by, not looking like you're distracted, looking over there at someone else, but that you're really present with that person. It goes without saying, if you're maintaining eye contact, also don't be looking down at your feet. This is something people tend to do when they're feeling shy or feeling anxious, but really try to keep your head up, try to keep that straight posture, and make sure that you're fully present listening to them. So this means actually, and this is where meditation comes in handy, but this means actually not letting yourself get distracted by other thoughts. Most people, when they're in a conversation listening to someone else, they're not truly listening. They're actually formulating in their head, how am I going to respond to this? What can I say to impress the other person? So you don't need to worry about this. Just get in the habit of when those thoughts pop into your head to actually say, okay, pay attention. Don't need to think about that. Once it comes time for you to speak, if they ask you a question or something, it will come. You don't need to worry about formulating your response while they're talking. Be sure to mute your devices, mute your phone or anything else that could have a notification. Nothing's worse than when you're talking to someone and they seem more interested in the vibrating or the chime on their phone than they are in what you have to say. Number 5, be the master of your emotions. So being non-reactive is about keeping your emotions in check. In other words, it's about not letting your emotions control you. Now, this is really difficult to do, but I assure you it is well worth the effort. Now, don't get me wrong. It's really important that you show your emotions. But when you let your negative emotions, such as stress or anxiety, really take hold of you, then it can make the conversation really uncomfortable, both for you and the person that you're speaking to. So by remaining calm and non-reactive, you show that you're not pressured by what's happening around you, and others will feel much more at ease conversing with you or being in your presence. All right, so now let's look at some techniques for being non-reactive. So first of all, let's look at a situation where you're sitting. So if you are sitting, for example, in a job interview, this could actually happen for some people when they're standing as well. You don't want to fidget. Now, fidgeting is when you are either playing with something on your body or playing with an object even. So we all know someone probably who, for example, if they have a pen in their hand, they're just gonna be the whole time clicking that pen, right? Like crazy. So that's one type of fidgeting. It's different ways of like letting your anxiety come out physically, which other people can notice, and it can make you feel like, if I'm speaking with you and you're fidgeting, it can seem like you're not very comfortable around me, which might make me feel uncomfortable, right? Avoid bouncing your leg, which really is a type of fidgeting. And if you're sitting at a table, it's good to have your hands in view, but also avoid like tapping the table with your fingers or with your nails, maybe if you have long nails. Also avoid touching your face, or maybe you have long hair, avoid playing with your hair, twirling it. As I said, if you're sitting at a table, it's good to show your hands, but even if you're standing, don't hide your hands in your pocket. It's always better if you have your hands, if you're using them to gesture. That shows a lot of confidence and open body language. Avoid crossing your arms, which is a much more closed type of body language. If you must cross your arms, then do it in a way where your hands are still visible. And if you're really feeling anxious, avoid this coming out in a physical way. Instead, try to anchor onto something. And a really great anchor is always the breath. So just try to make yourself more present by paying attention, not controlling, but paying attention to your inhale and your exhale. And this should really help you to calm down a bit and feel more present. You also don't need to feel super pressured to speak right away. So for example, if someone asks you a question, you can take a moment to think and to gather yourself and to really lower your anxiety before responding. So if you're in a high pressure situation, for example, at a job interview, then you might want to, just take a breath. You can kind of look up, not directly at the person for a moment and kind of gather your thoughts and then respond. There's nothing at all wrong with making the person wait just a little bit. And just before we move into today's last tip, I wanted to let you know that if you are new to Real Life English, well, every single week we bring you a new video like this one that helps you not only to improve your English, but also to improve your life. Just like we're seeing today, that being more confident not only is going to help you speak English better, but it's going to help you connect better with other people and ultimately just feel better in your life. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell down below so that every single week we can help you go from being a lost, insecure English learner to feeling like a natural and confident English speaker that you have all this potential to be. So we look forward to seeing you every single week here at Real Life English. Number 6, embrace vulnerability. So it is just impossible to gain confidence if you do not first have vulnerability. Many people actually see confidence as the sort of set trait that we have at birth, which is not at all true. Confidence actually comes out of vulnerability. In fact, Mark Manson, who is the author of this really fantastic book I read a couple of years ago called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F***, says that true confidence is being more invested in your perception of yourself than in someone else's perceptions of you. So in other words, vulnerability comes out of accepting and embracing who you are, even if other people don't accept it or don't like it. In fact, it probably sounds really cliche, but if you don't first like yourself, how can you ever expect other people to like you? Now, there's no one better to look to for advice on vulnerability than Brené Brown, who is a social scientist. Now, she says that vulnerability leads to courage, which leads to confidence. So actually, courage is much more important than confidence. The people who we view as just naturally confident are so not because of a natural personality trait that they have, but because over and over and over again, they've made the courageous choice to step out of their comfort zone. So if you want to be perceived as being more confident, then there's no shortcut. You have to actually embrace your vulnerability and make those decisions every time you can to be courageous and step out of your comfort zone too. So the exercise to master this tip actually has to do with putting yourself in uncomfortable situations that might even make you a bit scared. A fantastic way that you can do this is actually making a list of the things that you fear. In fact, author Tim Ferriss has an exercise called fear setting that helps you to do exactly this, and he actually attributes a lot of his success to doing this a few times a year. So let's look at the steps to do this exercise. So you start off thinking about something that you fear, and then writing down the phrase, "What if I?" and then the thing that you fear. Then you try to define the worst things that could happen in that situation, ways you can prevent those things, and if those worst things came to pass, how could you repair them? And if you're someone who really likes these kind of exercises, there's another really great and simple one called WHOOP, who comes from a professor of psychology named Gabrielle Oettingen. And I actually had the pleasure of interviewing her back at the beginning of this year. So I highly recommend that you check out my interview with her where you can learn this exercise. So just in finishing talking about this tip, courage does not need to be this huge act, this huge change that you're making. It can just be doing something small that gets you out of your comfort zone. In fact, true vulnerability really is if you're someone who is shy or introverted like myself, just going up to someone and saying, hi, I'm really nervous to come up and approach you, but I just thought that you'd be an interesting person to speak to. This could be if you're dating, if you're looking to meet someone and going up and just saying that you think that they are cute or that they're handsome or beautiful. Or it can just be, if you're at a networking event and you're looking to meet other people who have a similar interest to you, going up to a small group and introducing yourself. It's a small thing, but for many of us, it just seems like something that can be quite scary. But really, if you just get yourself out there, if you just push yourself a little bit, you'll see that it is much easier than you're building it up to be in your mind. And even if you are nervous about going up to someone and starting a conversation, the fact that you were brave enough to take the initiative and go and introduce yourself will make people see you as a confident person. And a caveat here, since we're talking about English learning, never apologize for your English. You're a learner, you've put a lot of hard work into it, whatever level you are currently at, and that's something that you should be proud of. So instead of saying, I'm sorry for my bad English, or sorry that my English isn't very good, you can actually say, that I'm still learning English. My English isn't at the level that I want it to be, but I'm really committed to it. You can even say that I don't have a lot of experience speaking English yet, and I'm a bit nervous. Someone who can admit that their English still is not at the level that they want it to be, or that they are nervous about communicating in their language, now that is confidence. So put yourself out there in more situations that give you just a little bit of fear, and you're really going to see that over time, by doing more and more of this, you can start to build up to doing bigger and bigger things that make you more scared, and you are going to become so much more confident than you are today.
And I just wanted to give a disclaimer in this video that there is no magic pill for confidence. I'd be lying if I said I don't still not feel confident sometimes when I'm in a new situation or when I go to a crowded place as someone who is both shy and introverted. It's completely normal to feel uncomfortable in new situations. So basically what I wanted to suggest to you is that, try out the different things that we've been learning about in this video, and don't think that you have to make some huge change in your life. You don't have to become someone who you're not, but just try to get into situations where you feel uncomfortable, to push yourself out of your comfort zone, and just try to get a little bit better every single time, all right?
And there you have it. That's 6 ways that you can improve your confidence speaking English or in anything else that's important to you in life just by using your body and your mind. So I want to hear from you. Which of these tips did you find the most surprising, and which one are you going to try out first? So let me know down in the comments below, and why don't you see what your fellow learners said too? So to wrap up, let's look at something really fascinating. So according to psychologist Albert Mehrabian, who has done extensive research on body language, he says that communication is 55% nonverbal, 38% vocal, and only 7% words. So by harnessing the power of body language, you will feel more confident and secure next time you get the opportunity to speak with someone in English, be it on our app or be it out in a situation in the real world. The most effective communicators in the world don't just use words to get their message across. They also use their voice, and especially they use their body. So if you're wanting to be a more effective communicator, then you can do the same. All right, so now it's time to get off your computer or your phone or wherever you're watching this, go out into the real world and actually put some of this into practice. It's not enough just to watch a video and hope that you absorb it and magically become more confident. I believe in you, you can do it, ah yeah. A very possible reason that you might not feel confident speaking is that you simply have not practiced doing it enough. This is because the more that we practice doing something, the more confident that we feel doing it. For example, imagine that you just have gotten your driver's license. Now, you might feel comfortable driving around your neighborhood, but if you have to go to another city or you have to drive on the highway, then it might be a really nerve-wracking experience for you. And now think about anything that you do well. Maybe you're great at